President Trump and Bibi Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, had a very tense conversation. That story was first reported by Axios, and one of the reporters on that byline is Mark Caputo. He's joining us now. Mark, welcome to the Charlie Kirk Show. It's good to have you. Can you hear me, Mark?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Excellent. We've got you now. Your story yesterday in Axios caused quite the stir. The headline is, "You're effing crazy. Trump fumes at Netanyahu and call on Lebanon." The subtitle is, "You'd be in prison if it weren't for me. I'm saving your behind." Mark, this, like I said, caused quite the stir yesterday. Tell us about your reporting, and do you stand by it now?
Oh, certainly. We spoke to multiple senior administration officials with knowledge of the call who we have used as sources of accurate information before. And the reason we were able to report this first is over the weekend, my colleague Barak Ravid and I had done a story about how Trump had made an amendment, change to the Iran peace plan, that he's hoping to strike with the government there. And during the reporting of that over the weekend, one of our sources had told us that Netanyahu wanted Lebanon to be included in the peace plan, but Trump thought it was too complicated. Then the next day, on Saturday, or better said on Sunday, the Israeli military just unleashed holy hell in Lebanon. And knowing what I know of the administration and the fact that there have been some concerns for quite some time that Netanyahu himself might not be fully committed to the peace process the way the United States was, I figured that this would greatly upset President Trump. So we began calling based on that hunch, knowing what we know, and indeed people told us that this was the contents of the conversation. So it wasn't just one person we spoke to. It was two people who are impeccable sources, as well as another person who was briefed more on the call and didn't have as much knowledge of it. So all of their accounts lined up. They came in separately, and that's why we ran the story.
Now, Mark, we don't always get a glimpse behind the scenes of President Trump's negotiations with world leaders. We know he can be a very forward, aggressive individual. So setting the context for our viewers and listeners, is this a significant shift in how President Trump and Bibi Netanyahu have interacted in the past? Does this seem like a significant development, or have they had some pretty fractious interactions like this before?
They have in the past. We've reported them at the time that when Netanyahu unleashed some strikes in Syria last year, it really rankled President Trump. And there have been other times, for instance, when the Gaza peace deal was being hammered out, Trump also had some very frank conversations with him. They have a very long-standing relationship. They have shared political advisors in the past. I would consider them to be sort of brothers, but brothers who sometimes fight, not quite like Cain and Abel, but can sometimes come to some pretty serious trading of words, let's say. And so this is very consistent with that relationship. So you didn't quite ask this question, but if someone would think that there's some sort of rupture between the two that would be permanent, I don't think so.
For a lot of Americans, healthcare is reactive. You get sick first, then you wait for an appointment, and insurance decides what you're allowed to have. All Family Pharmacy does it differently. They let you order prescription medications before you're sick, so you can keep them at home and have them ready when you need them most. Everything is done online. A licensed doctor reviews your request, and your medication ships straight to your door. They offer antibiotics, antivirals, Tamiflu, ivermectin, and access to over 300 prescription medications. This is about access and preparation. Choose freedom. Choose the right pharmacy. Go to allfamilypharmacy.com/Kirk. Use code KIRK10 to save 10%. All right. So, Mark, the issue then is Lebanon. So you mentioned that they unleashed holy hell on southern Lebanon. I have two questions. It does feel reasonable to me that if Israel's getting struck from terrorist cells that are supported by Iran out of southern Lebanon, that should be a separate piece of the deal here. How is the administration looking at those two pieces now? Israel has said that they're going to continue defending themselves and there's been no change. Is that how you understand it?
That's how we understand it. And let's face it, this is a complicated, dynamic chessboard where the pieces just happen to be firing at each other with advanced weaponry. And the complication in this entire matter is that Iran, certainly from the perspective of the United States, is a bad actor that is dedicated to the destruction of Israel. And Hezbollah is one of its long-standing proxies. And there is a belief and an understanding by Trump himself, as well as a belief in the administration, that Iran is probably stoking Hezbollah, or some aspects or some factions in Iran are stoking Hezbollah to attack Israel, knowing it's going to promote or prompt this response from Netanyahu, which can then be used as an excuse to scuttle the entire peace talks. And that is part of the sort of complications of figuring out what's really happening in the Middle East and how peace can happen. Because the reality is the dysfunction is such where there are a number of people and a number of factions and groups that just sort of want to stay in perpetual war. And that's one of the things President Trump doesn't want to engage in. However, the reality is the United States did launch these attacks initially on Iran, so we're sort of in the thick of it now.
Yeah, I mean, as we often say on the show, you can choose when to start a war, but you can't necessarily choose when to end it. But this dynamic, you know, we think of command and control in the terms of the United States, right, where we have a president, a secretary of war, and it flows down from there. What is your reporting saying or showing, Mark, on the command and control structure of the Iranian regime at this point? Is it possible there's rogue elements that are fueling this, and the moderates are trying to, you know, keep them at bay? Explain that dynamic, Mark.
That's a good question as to, like, who's really in charge. One of the problems that the United States is experiencing is it's become a victim of its own success. One of the reasons they launched the attack the way it was, the reason President Trump greenlit it, was to decapitate a lot of the leadership in Iran. That succeeded. However, Iran was expecting this and has been wargaming this for some time, and it's formed what's called the Mosaic Doctrine. It has a diffuse power structure that was designed to withstand a decapitating blow. So you have sort of these independent or quasi-independent operators in different factions in the IRGC and in the Iranian military proper. And so different groups are probably acting in different ways. Some want to have a peace deal. Others don't. And those who don't necessarily want a peace deal have a much easier time making sure that there's war.
Yeah, this is super fascinating. So I just want to reiterate, you know, this, I tweeted out your story yesterday, Mark. I got immediate blowback from, I would say, people that want to see the regime overthrown in Iran. I just want to double check. You stand by your reporting. You also broke the day before that President Trump. Okay, 100%. You also broke the day before that President Trump was that they were getting rid of the weaponization fund, and that has proven to be accurate. So, you know, I've known you for a bit, Mark. You've reported on us, on Charlie. You've always been pretty fact based, and so I took it pretty seriously when you put this out there. So. So we'll see what happens. Mark Caputo.
Not just me. Understand, my colleague Barak Ravid has a very long and excellent track history in reporting both in the United States and in the Middle East on these matters. I felt a little more nervous about putting out what turned out to be the accurate report about Trump scrapping the weaponization fund than I did about this report about the Trump-Bibi phone call. That is, the report that wound up being confirmed as true. I initially had more concerns about it, whether it was true or not, but that was true, and I'm very confident that my sources here are not lying to me.
Yeah. Well, Mark, thanks for making the time. I know you're traveling. Thanks for calling in. We will watch this situation closely and any new reporting we have on. But, you know, first blush, you know, when I saw it, Mark, I was like, oh, you know, President Trump swearing on a phone call to a world leader doesn't strike me as extraordinarily, you know, groundbreaking, but man, oh man, did it cause a stir. So thank you, Mark. We'll talk to you soon.